Good evening. So we're continuing to look at the trainings which are shared with practitioners of intermediate capacity. The purpose of these trainings is to give rise to definite emergence. The attitude whereby one is definite of the need to emerge from the suffering realms of samsara. And to give rise to such an attitude, it's imperative that one comes to recognize how suffering pervades cyclic existence. And to bring this about, we looked last year at the sufferings of the lower realms, and now we've been looking at more recently at the eightfold, the threefold, the sixfold presentation of suffering, as well as then specific to realms. Last time we looked at the sufferings of the human realms and of the desire realm gods. That then brings us to the presentation on the sufferings in relation to the form and formless realm gods, the two upper realms. So where we are in the text is the bottom of page 165. So we come to look at the suffering of the gods of the uppermost realms. So the cyclic existence is usually presented in terms of three realms. So we've concluded looking at the sufferings in relation to the desire realm. So now we come to the uppermost realms. And these are the form and formless realms. So there are two divisions. Within the form realm, this is usually presented as having four divisions, so four within the form realm. And these are called four concentrations. So the first, second, third, and fourth concentration. And as one develops these various states of mind of each ascending concentration, the quality of happiness experience develops. So there's greater happiness in the second form realm than in the first. And the third has greater happiness than the second or the first, and so forth. And then when a being moves beyond the form realm, it's to the realm without form, the formless realm. And there are also four divisions. So four of each. So the upper realms are divided into two. Form realm, formless realm, each are divided into four. But in some texts, the form realm is not divided into four, but into 17. And that really is still the four divisions, but with subdivisions. And they go something like 6 in the first concentration, 1 or in the second, 1 in the third, and that would leave 12 in the fourth concentration, if I remember correctly. So, but in brief, the form realm has 4 concentrations, and the formless realm is also divided into 4. Well, actually, on reflection, the way to come to the 17 divisions within the form realm is like the subdivisions are like this. In the first concentration, there are 3. The second concentration, 3. In the third concentration, also 3, leaving 8 for the fourth concentration. Mm-hmm. So now we'll read from the text. So again, at the bottom of page 165. Although gods in the two uppermost realms do not have the suffering of suffering, they have mental afflictions and obstructions, and they lack control over their death, their transmigration, and their next state, which is why they suffer through negative habitual tendencies. We see here, although gods in the upper twomost realms, so the form and formless realms, do not have the suffering of suffering. So this is something, the suffering of suffering, or the suffering of physical mental pain, pervades the desire realm. So not just desire realm beings in the lower realms or in the upper realms of humans, but also in the upper realms of gods. There is the suffering of physical and mental pain. So in fact, there is far more suffering in the desire realm than in the form realm, or formless realm. So whilst beings in the form, or gods in the form and formless realm, do not suffer in the way that beings in the desire realm suffers, in that they do not suffer from physical and mental pain, they do nevertheless suffer. And this, now the text continues. They suffer due to their having mental afflictions and obstructions, and they suffer due to lacking control over their death. In other words, they are still bound in cyclic existence. they still, therefore, experience the all-pervasive suffering of conditionality, and therefore they lack control over their death. Their contaminated karma and imprints will determine when their lifespan is exhausted and where their next rebirth will be. So they do not have freedom over their rebirth. Further, they suffer in further ways in terms of their transmigration, their movement from one realm to the next, and their next state. And this is all, again, I read up to date. Just as as a translator, there will be some technical vocabulary in this segment that I don't know. So some of the terminology you may have heard translated more accurately elsewhere, but the meaning will be fine. But just some of the terminology, one or two terms, I don't know. Now to what Genla said. So in order to achieve a concentration, so let's do it this way. So the form realm has 4 concentrations. They are achieved in a particular sequence, first, second, third, and fourth. That's a set sequence. In order to achieve the first concentration, this will be achieved by a desire realm being. So a being in the desire realm has the capacity to develop the first concentration of the form realm, or the first concentration. So this is done by means of developing calm abiding. And so that calm abiding is developed, and it needs to be then developed, because calm abiding itself is not a mind of the form realm. It's not a first concentration. It needs to be developed further. The way it's developed further is by this desire realm being who has now developed calm abiding, focusing on the faults of the desire realm and the benefits of the first concentration of the form realm. So, but specifically the first concentration. So they're looking at the faults of being a desire realm being, or having a mind of the desire realm, and they're looking at the great benefits of having the mind of the first concentration. And through this, they develop the determination to suppress the afflictions of the desire realm, so as to have the mind of the first concentration. And they're training their mind in this way, developing their concentration further, so that it is not distracted or drawn towards the afflictions of the desire realm, but rather their single-pointed concentration, their calm abiding, is being developed into the concentration, into the mind of the first concentration, into the first concentration. When that is achieved, and this is the term I don't know, they achieve something like a coarse piece of the first concentration. The coarse piece of the first concentration. When that is achieved, they have attained, it's called a cessation, but it's not an actual cessation, it's not a true cessation. So it's called a cessation, but it's not a true cessation, like we know from the paths of seeing and meditation. Because this being may well not have achieved a path yet, let alone of the path of seeing or meditation. Nevertheless, now having developed the first concentration, this coarse piece of the first concentration, they have done so by attaining a cessation of the manifest desire realm afflictions. So they have, I'll repeat it, attained a cessation of the manifest. So they are non-manifest, the imprints are still there, but they will not manifest of the desire realm afflictions, not all afflictions, the desire realm afflictions. So this marks the attainment of the first concentration. Just to make sure this is clear, their calm abiding has been developed further. It's being developed to a higher level, that now it is at the first concentration. So this meditator is in the desire realm, they have a body of the desire realm, they'll be counted amongst desire realm beings, but they've achieved the mind of the first concentration. So if we ask ourselves, where in the three realms is this being? Desire realm. But they have the mind of the first concentration. Now, this mind of the first concentration, it can degenerate. If it does, it can be recultivated. If this being dies with the mind of the first concentration, that is where they'll be reborn. They will then be counted amongst the gods of the form realm, in particular of that first level, the first concentration. So, gods of the form realm with this mind of the first concentration. The process works like this, that a desire realm being, so again, as I said, it'll be a human or a god, so a desire realm being strives and achieves calm abiding. So they have single points of concentration, they have the union of physical and mental pliancy, so they've achieved actual calm abiding. They haven't, though, achieved the first concentration. To achieve the first concentration, they look at the faults of the afflictions in the desire realm and the great benefits of having a mind of the first concentration. They recognize that achieving a first concentration, one is free from the suffering of suffering, and so forth. One is free of anger. One is free of all the desire realm afflictions. Let's re-express that so it's really precise. One isn't free of them. They are suppressed, but completely suppressed, so you will not experience them. So one looks at this desire realm being with calm abiding, one looks to the mind of the first concentration and thinks, if I achieve that, none of the problems of the afflictions of the desire realm will bother me. They'll be suppressed. And whilst there are afflictions manifest for beings with the first concentration, they experience so much more happiness than I am, that I can. And one thereby, this is the process, reflects on the great benefits of achieving the mind or the first concentration, and the faults of remaining in the desire realm, or remaining with the mind of the desire realm. That is the process, and thereby one develops one's calm abiding to a higher level, and it becomes the first concentration. Then one has achieved the first concentration, is now enjoying a far more peaceful mind. So the text is often translated as bliss, but it's the word for happiness, and that's clearer. So one is achieving the happiness now of the first concentration. And one has no attachment for desire realm objects. So when one's not in meditation, one's going around one's business as a human or as a god, and there are all these desire realm objects, doesn't impress you at all. Doesn't draw you at all. So this is now the achievement of the first concentration. To be clear, no desire realm afflictions will manifest. They've all been suppressed. But the seeds remain. Now, with this mind of the first concentration, the being in the desire realm, with his body of the desire realm, will think about the great benefits of developing their concentration further into the second level, the second of the four concentrations of the form realm. And then thereby, they repeat the process. Whilst they are enjoying the peace of the first concentration, they look at the second concentration and see how attainable it is for them and how much more peaceful it is. So they yearn to develop the mind of the second concentration by looking at its benefits and the faults of the first concentration. And with that motivation, or with that in mind, they strive and develop their concentration further, going and attain then the second concentration. Now they've achieved the happiness of the being of the second concentration, or of the mind of the second concentration, and their afflictions are again far more less disturbing. And this process continues. So the process of looking at the realm above, or the level of concentration above, as being, that's what I want to achieve. It's so much, the happiness is so much better than this coarser level than I've achieved now. The practitioner develops their concentration, starting from the desire realm to the first concentration, to the second, to the third, to the fourth concentration. When they've achieved the fourth of the four concentrations in the form realm, the process continues. They're now looking at the formless realm, and they see how wonderful it would be to achieve the mind of the formless realm, as opposed to this coarser level of the fourth concentration of the form realm. And they continue that process to achieving the first, I think they're called absorptions. The first absorption of the formless realm, the second absorption, the third absorption. And eventually, through this process, this ordinary samsaric being will achieve the fourth absorption of the formless realm. This is called the peak of cyclic existence. Again, I mentioned the other names. I don't know them. I only know this one. This one's called the peak of cyclic existence. And this is as far as a sentient being can go. So they've achieved the peak of cyclic existence, which is the fourth absorption of the formless realm. And again, this process to go from calm abiding to the first concentration, and from the first concentration to the second, right the way up to the peak of cyclic existence, the fourth absorption of the formless realm, is the same. One looks at the benefits, the mental benefits of all the great benefits of the higher level, and the faults of where you are. And by that, you develop your concentration further. And you may well still be in this body of a desire realm being, and be classed as a desire realm being, but your mind is somewhat more developed. So achieving calm abiding and developing it, achieving calm abiding as a desire realm being and developing it into the first concentration, assuming, and maybe further to the second, to the third, and so forth. When death comes, whichever of those minds one has, and in other words, it hasn't degenerated, that will determine the realm you're born into. So if you die, let's say, as a desire realm being, when death comes, you've achieved, let's say, the second concentration, then you'll be born in the form realm with the mind of the second concentration. Once a being is born in the form realm, then the form or formless realm, wherever they are born, they can develop their concentration further, or develop their concentration further and progress through the realms from that life as a form, say a form realm god. Let's say they're born as a form realm god with the mind of the second concentration. They can in the same through the same process develop the mind of the third concentration, the fourth concentration, and the formless realm minds, and so forth. So being born in the form realm, they will experience no suffering of suffering. So they won't, for example, they won't experience the sufferings of heat and cold. They have no need to eat, and so forth. So they do still experience suffering throughout the form and formless realm in the sense of the all-pervasive suffering of conditionality and the other things mentioned here. But in terms of their feelings, the beings who have achieved the first, the second, and third concentration all experience a feeling of happiness, feelings of suffering, feelings of happiness, and neutral feelings. So beings in the first three concentrations experience feelings of happiness, but a being in the fourth, with the mind of the fourth concentration, will only experience neutral feelings, so not even happy feelings. So what's described here is as presented in the non-Madhyamaka schools. Now moving on, so we have a quotation from Discourse on the Collections, and unfortunately a few changes in the translation, but again we'll go through it line by line, I'm sure. So one in the form or formless realms, having transcended the suffering of suffering, a master of the bliss of concentration who stays immovable for eons. Yet this most certainly is not liberation. He will still fall from there again, through the whirlpool of suffering in the lower realms. Though the whirlpool of suffering in the lower realms seems to have been transcended, he won't last long there, even with effort. Like a bird in flight up high, like an arrow shot with the strength of a child, he ends up falling. Like butter lamps that blaze for long, while actually perishing moment by moment, he's completely obsessed by the suffering called compositional, thoroughly changing. And the third and fourth lines, a master of the bliss of concentration. So could express this as the embodiment, so someone who embodies the bliss or happiness of concentration, who stays immovable for eons. So it refers to this being, so this God in the form or formless realm, who's enjoying the happiness that comes with concentration, stays immovable for eons, which means their concentration is unwavering for eons. And that also relates to their lifespan, which is immense for beings born in these form and formless realms. Fifth and sixth lines. Yet this most certainly is not liberation. So this is important, because this being who is abiding for an immense period of time, experiencing great happiness, has not achieved the lasting happiness of liberation. He will still fall from there again. So death will come, and their next rebirth, it's not a matter of choice. Just like for ourselves, their next rebirth will be propelled by their contaminated karma and afflictions. And their next rebirth is likely to not be in as pleasant a state. Their time of experiencing this great happiness of living in concentration for eons will end, and rebirth perhaps as a human, otherwise in one of the lower realms, will follow. The next three lines. So I think I've changed the order to match the Tibetan from what's in your book. Though the whirlpool of suffering in the lower realms seems to have been transcended, he won't last long there, even with effort. So the first line here then, though the whirlpool of suffering in the lower realms seems to have been transcended. So this God, abiding in happiness for so long, it may well appear that this is their new reality. This is how they will be forever. But the karmic strength the strength of the karma that led to this rebirth will come to an end. And across the length of an individual being's samsaric existence, even though that rebirth has been for eons, it is, when compared to the length of a being's samsaric existence, we can say that it isn't long. And then death will come, and rebirth back into the immense misery and pain of the lower realms will follow. Then illustrations are given, like a bird in flight up high. So here we think of, perhaps we see eagles, or not around here, but vultures elsewhere. We see how long they can soar high in the sky. So whilst watching them, it may seem like an eternity, an age, that they are high in the sky, but eventually they have to come down. So likewise with the beings born in the form and formless realms. The next two lines, like an arrow shot with the strength of a child, he also ends up falling. So if you think of an arrow shot by someone who's strong, so an adult, it will go a great distance. If shot by a child, it certainly will not. But as it leaves the bow and ascends, kind of looks the same, but it will fall. Either way, it will fall. Whether it's shot by an adult or by a child, this arrow will fall. So too the gods. Further illustration. Like butter lamps that blaze for long, while actually perishing moment by moment. Again, we light a lamp. It seems to last for hours. Sometimes they even seem to last for days. But in reality, then it's not even lasting a moment. The lamp and its flame is changing moment by moment. The final two lines, he is completely oppressed by the suffering called compositional thoroughly changing. Despite having abided for eons in the great happiness of the higher realms, and in this period, they haven't experienced coarse suffering at all. But because this rebirth was taken due to contaminated karma and afflictions, this process will repeat itself. It will continue. Death will follow, and rebirth will be propelled under the power of contaminated karma. The being is not free and will continue to suffer. The general meaning of what's presented here is that due to the power of concentration, a being takes rebirth in the form and formless realms and abides there, enjoying this great happiness of concentration, free from the sufferings of the lower realms and the sufferings of the desire realm in its entirety. But they are not yet free from samsara, and in fact, they will end up taking rebirth in the desire realm. If one is born in the form and formless realms, or maybe express it like this, a being abiding in the form and formless realms, there is no certainty that they will attain freedom from suffering. It all depends on whether they have cultivated a path or not. If one attains a rebirth with this great happiness that abides for such a long period of time, but if one has not abandoned the afflictions together with their seeds, whilst for this lengthy period of time the suffering one experiences is slight, this process, this inevitable process, is merely delayed. Death will come, and the sufferings of realms lower to where you are will continue. So if a path hasn't been cultivated, one is not heading towards freedom. One may be experiencing relative comfort compared to the vast majority of beings in cyclic existence, but one isn't free. One is still going to have to suffer again like this. The only way to gain freedom is to cultivate a path, cultivating it ever further until one abandons the afflictions together with their seeds. Long life is attainable in the desire realm. But some gods in the desire realm live an incredible span of life, such as those born into the heaven of the 33. There, a single minute of that god's life is equivalent to 500 human years, and they live an incredibly long life of God years. And if each minute of those God years is equivalent to 500 years of human life, we can imagine just how long that lifespan of a god born in the desire realm, heaven of the 33. Longer than that is a being born in the form realm, a god of the form realm, and gods of the formless realm have even longer lifespans than that. So even wherever one is born, as long as one hasn't gained freedom from the causes of cyclic existence, whatever pleasure one experiences will not last long. But all that being said, there are practitioners who develop from the desire realm, minds of the form and formless realm, and develop paths as within the desire realm, and then take rebirth in the form realm with a mental path. And so they can be reborn in the form or formless realm with a path in their continuum, and they can develop that path further. What they cannot do, though, as a god of the form and formless realm with a path, is realize emptiness directly. So they cannot newly realize emptiness directly. So if rebirth is taken in the form and formless realm by a practitioner who has achieved a path, the path of accumulation or preparation, they can continue to develop their qualities, but they cannot gain a direct realization of emptiness. For that, they will need to be reborn in the desire realm so that they can realize emptiness newly and take rebirth again, again in the form or formless realm, and then continue along the path of meditation in the form or formless realm. But so in brief, whilst beings in the form and formless realm can have a path and can develop that path further. They cannot gain the initial direct realization of emptiness in the formal formless realm. That has to be done in the desire realm. The reason why practitioners in the form and formless realm cannot newly realize emptiness directly is because to do so, one has to have very strong definite emergence. And that definite emergence cannot really be developed so strongly in the form and formless realm because there is so little manifest suffering that is experienced, or the suffering that is manifest is so slight that to recognize that there is no abiding value anywhere in samsara cannot be done to a deep level. That can, though, be done in the desire realm. So earlier this evening I mentioned how one develops first as a desire realm being, a calm abiding, and one then develops that further to achieve the first concentration and the method by which one goes from the first concentration to the second concentration. And as a translator, I wasn't sure on this term, but it's something like, the path of course peace, so course peaceful path, something like that. And so this is done by looking at the benefits of the state above you and the fault of where you currently are. So if you are in a desire realm, have a mind of the desire realm, you see the great happiness of a being with the mind of the first concentration and the faults of the desire realm, and give rise to a yearning and thereby the determined attitude to develop that concentration of the first concentration. And that method is repeated as one develops the concentrations and later the absorptions. So that is one method, but that is not necessarily the method of someone who's striving for liberation will follow. So someone who's striving for liberation is more likely to develop calm abiding already with a wish of wanting to gain liberation from samsara. They would have come to give rise to the determined attitude to give rise to calm abiding by seeing the faults of true sufferings and true origins, and thereby given rise to the determined attitude for liberation. That will lead them to develop concentration and develop their concentration ever further. So this then has a different name again, I don't know how it's translated, but it's something like the peace of the four truths, something like that. The four truths, as in four noble truths. The peace of the four noble truths, something like that. So the meaning is Four Noble Truths, but that's not the title. It's just truths. So the peace of truth, maybe you could say something like this. And so you develop, that is the method by which one will develop from calm abiding to the first concentration onwards, developing one's concentration further. But the motivation is very different here. One isn't aspiring for greater happiness. One is the greater happiness of the next level of concentration or absorption, but one is developing one's power of one's concentration so that one can abandon the origins of suffering and gain freedom from samsara. So the advice for practitioners such as ourselves who have an aspiration for liberation, for enlightenment, but are still away from achieving a path, we have to achieve calm abiding. Without calm abiding, a path cannot be cultivated. With calm abiding, a path can be cultivated. But to be clear, calm abiding.
판도요 톱나요 가시에 톱아요 톱네 람념은 저요 가시에 마토와요 다 간절에 인지민의 신의 토고거래 신의 토고거래.
So we have to achieve calm abiding in order to achieve a path. This is indispensable. A path cannot be achieved without calm abiding. Because the quality of meditation to actually give rise to this mental path just isn't there. The mind is too weak. So the practitioner then, such as ourselves, this is advice for practitioners like ourselves, will strive to develop calm abiding in order to develop a path. And one will then train in the way that one is presented. When calm abiding is achieved, then one has a choice. One can either continue to train in the second way presented, by thinking on true sufferings and true origins in order to progress towards liberation, or if one chooses, one can develop the mind of the first concentration by looking at the faults of cyclic of the faults of the desire realm and the benefits of a mind of the first concentration, so that one is no longer disturbed by the desirable objects of the desire realm that surround you. But that is optional, it's not essential. In this presentation, for us of an aspiration to gain freedom from suffering, what is a prerequisite to develop a path, a prerequisite for liberation are the paths. To develop a path, calm abiding must be achieved. Whether one then achieves calm abiding and develops it into a concentration, that is optional. The context that we are in is the suffering of the higher realms. Now, I've expanded that quite a bit and spoken about how one achieves them and some of the features of the higher realms for interest, but the context here really is to not be deceived, to think that there is a happiness there that is worthy of striving for. Even the happiness of these higher states is still bound in samsara, and therefore suffering continues. As has been presented, as one progresses through the concentrations and the absorptions, there's a development in the mind, but there is also one other very obvious difference, in that when the beings in the formless realm have no form, whereas those in the form realm, of course, have bodies, so they have form. But this has an important consequence. In the formless realm, you'll find no Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. Why? Cannot teach. The Buddhas cannot teach, the Bodhisattvas cannot teach. The Bodhisattvas cannot hear teachings. They cannot read texts. They have no body. They have no form. So they cannot hear and speak. And all that one can do in the formless realm is meditate, is abide in concentration. So Bodhisattvas and Buddhas are not to be found in the formless realms. The purpose of this presentation is for us to be very clear that striving for happiness that is still bound in samsara is not what our goal should be. Because even when one achieves incredible happiness of eons of peace, it is really nothing special, because death will still follow and one will continue one cycle in samsara. All it will have been is a long break, but it's not that final break of freedom. Even these beings in the two uppermost realms who are experiencing great mental peace of mind for eons of time are not free of suffering. Why? Because the causes abide on their continuum. They, whilst abiding in happiness for eons, they are abiding together with the seeds of suffering. Therefore, when their lifespan is exhausted, rebirth will be taken, and manifest as suffering will continue. Whilst there, they will experience the all-pervasive suffering of conditionality, and their lifespan is moment by moment drawing to an end. And when rebirth follows, they will take rebirth in a realm such as our own, where they will suffer. All beings in the desire realm suffer through physical and mental pain, transient happiness, as well as all-pervasive suffering of conditionality. So these beings abiding in the great happiness of the uppermost realms have that before them. They have not gained their freedom. Whereas for ourselves here, as a desire realm being, whilst like the desire realm gods, there is the experience of all three types of suffering, we have, as humans, the very best of opportunities to change our way of thinking, to gain freedom, to develop definite emergence and all the qualities of the path. Then thank you. We can conclude there for tonight, but if you have questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, there's tomorrow too. Yes, Venerable Sepal, and then, yeah.
I understand why you need a level of single point concentration to achieve the Mahayana path of accumulation, but why would you need actual calm abiding?
Why would you need calm abiding to achieve the Theravadan part of accumulation? Is it that?
No, the path of accumulation.
The Mahayana part of accumulation.
I've not heard that before.
Okay.
I know you need it for the path of preparation.
Okay.
But why do you need it to develop and achieve that?
Okay.
Well, of course you need some concentration.
Questions. Repeat the question. So why do you need calm abiding to achieve the path of accumulation? To attain the path of accumulation, whether Theravada or Mahayana, one needs uncontrived definite emergence. For definite emergence to be uncontrived, one needs deep habituation to it, familiarization to it. For that, one needs calm abiding. In that, through being able to abide single-pointedly on the determined attitude to gain freedom from samsara and achieve liberation, this is by abiding there single-pointedly, one will develop the habituation required for the mind of definite emergence to become uncontrived. So it's for that reason that one needs a calm abiding in order to achieve the path of accumulation.
Yeah, I was just wondering where these beings actually exist in their locality. Are they existing like in this universe around us in a different frequency? Like where do they actually exist?
Sure. Yeah, so where is the abode of the form and formless realms? So beings in the desire realm, or humans in the desire realm, who achieve a mind of the form or formless realm will be amongst us. Hence, of course, they'll be human beings, but they will have this level of concentration. But when death comes and they take rebirth in the corresponding form or formless realm, where that is isn't stipulated. So it isn't said at all. So therefore, one can come up with a theory, but it hasn't been taught by the Buddha.
I had another question.
Sure.
You mentioned that the formless beings don't have bodies, therefore the bodhisattvas and the Buddhas can't actually help them on the path at that point. Is it that they are remembering the past teachings that they've had through imprints? Or how is it that they're now meditating without guidance and teachers?
Yeah, so beings born in the formless realm, how do they, without guidance and teachers, how are they meditating on, how they're meditating? Is it based on memory of what they remember from before? So yes, based on memory. So they will have achieved a path then. So we're talking in the context of Buddhists. They will have achieved a path. They'll be in the formless realm, and their afflictions will be greatly suppressed, and therefore they will easily remember what has been studied before, and that will be their basis for ongoing meditation. Then there'll be time tomorrow for further questions. Thank you.